Handsome Hockey Podcast. 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 Handsome Hockey Podcast.
Handsome Hockey Podcast.
Hey everybody, it is that time again where you listen to Evan and I blather about hockey.
It's handsome season.
And we're sorry about that, but you're the one that chose to listen to it, so this is kind of on you.
We're going to make your mistake worthwhile.
Welcome to the Handsome Hockey Podcast. This is episode 58. As announced earlier, I am Jake, and with me is...
Evan! And you know what that sound means. It means we're going to talk about the Connecticut
Whale. Yeah, some things happened in the NHL this past week, but the most important thing in hockey that happened this week is the Connecticut Whale won their first regular season title in the PHF, and they did it by spanking the hell out of the team that was in second place. So this weekend was a huge weekend in the PHF. It was the ultimate weekend of the regular season. The Whale and the Toronto Six faced off to effectively decide who would be the regular season champs.
means not a whole lot in terms of the Isobel Cup.
Well, you get
Means
first,
everything in terms of seeding and
Yeah.
and in terms of momentum.
if the NCAA basketball tournament has taught us anything, it's that first seeds almost always make it out of the first round. So the Whale lost in overtime to a Michaela Grant-Mentis overtime winner. I believe that's her 6th or 7th game-winning goal of the season, which is ridiculous. But then bounced back on Sunday to win 5-0, and that regulation win catapulted them ahead of the Toronto Six by 1 point to take the regular season title.
So real photo finish here.
This is Churchill Downs, except with humans and not horses, which are terrible creatures.
They don't have to take goalies out and like euthanize them behind walls of sheets or anything.
Right. Oh, Katie Burt got hurt. Well, uh-oh. There also was the Boston Pride and the Buffalo Buttes played this weekend and Carly Jackson had themselves a game.
Yeah.
Or weekend, I should say.
In addition to a season.
In addition to a season in which they put in a Herculean effort. They faced 504 shots on the season.
Only.
In 20 games.
Only.
The Pride couldn't muster a win against the Buttes this weekend. That didn't really matter so much for the standings as they were kind of already decided. But it's great for the Buttes heading into the Isobel Cup here with 2 wins against the team that they will face in the preliminary round on Friday night. Mm-hmm. So they've got some confidence. Carly Jackson's playing out of her mind. And it's a really strong run in for them into the playoffs. And we'll see what happens there. Maybe this young team is kind of turning a corner and gelling at the right time. And you never know what could happen when you get a hot goaltender in a playoff run.
It's intriguing. This first round series is going to be fun.
It's winner take all hockey.
Yeah, and
one and done hockey, which
anything can happen. You have to show up. You can't slough off for a game or two. Like you got to show up awake and ready to play.
Before we get to our Isobel Cup primer, I do want to say we had a nice discussion about the MVP race for the PHF last episode. And in that episode, we kind of determined that it was probably going to be Michaela Grant-Mentis who took away the MVP. This weekend changed that. And I think it's probably going to be Kennedy Marchment.
Our ombudsman called down from the office and said, we're going to need to review that take in greater detail. And actually, we're going to reverse it a whole week later. Looking at you, NCAA women's hockey. But
so Kennedy Marchment finished the season. She recorded a point in 8 straight games. She had 2 goals on Saturday in a losing effort, and then 4 assists on Sunday. Broke the Whale record for goals and assists and points in a season, and leads the league in points, is second in goals, and is third in assists. That's your MVP right there.
Hard to argue against that.
It will, end up being probably a difficult decision for whomever has to make that sort of decision. But with Katie Burt and Elaine Chuley kind of, canceling each other out on the goalie front, I think it really kind of comes down to Michaela Grant-Mentis and Kennedy Marchment, and I think this last weekend kind of solidified Kennedy Marchment as your MVP. We'll see when the awards are announced, but it's real good.
Kennedy Marchment just announcing to the world this year, hey, I'm here and I'm better than you.
I'm really fucking good at hockey. That whole me dominating in Sweden thing, I do that over here too.
Yeah.
As we said earlier, the Isobel Cup starts this weekend in Tampa, Florida.
Rumor has it that the winner gets to ride Pat Maroon's jet ski.
Collection of jet skis. He's got one for each player. So Friday night, March 25th, will be the preliminary games. And that will be Boston versus Buffalo and Metropolitan versus Minnesota. Apparently, if your team name doesn't start with the same letter as another team, you advance straight to the semifinals.
Yeah,
this was determined before the season.
It's alliteration or bye. And these are all on ESPN Plus?
Yes, they will all be on ESPN Plus. The semifinals are going to be Sunday, and then the final will be on Monday, where if you've been following along with me, the Whale will win, and I will probably squeal at some point that day.
Yeah, it's always hard to count out Boston. I mean, they're going to, have a pretty easy first round game, and
against the team they lost to twice this last weekend. So
maybe easy's wrong, but I don't know. If Boston doesn't make it out of the first round, that will be
a massive failure.
A failure. Also a good sign for the league, to have some measure of parity after Boston has really dominated the last couple of years would be interesting. I mean, it has been really interesting to watch Buffalo come on and Toronto come on, and especially to watch the Whale kick ass this year.
In the ascendancy, they lead the league in goals. Fewest goals against, best goal differential.
Yeah, when you go from the end of your origin story movie to then your sort of ascendancy movie in the in any sort of superhero context, those are always the most interesting ones.
This is Return of the King.
All right. So bring it on, I guess.
Yeah. Apparently they're going to have to travel in and get this skeletal army to come and save the day. But hey, you know what? That's what kings do. And in this case, that's what the Whale are going to do. I'm so excited to rock I wore it the other day, so I'm going to wear it again. It's dirty. I don't give a shit.
It means that the Juju juice is still rocking in it.
Yes, I'm going to rock that pod shirt all day on Monday and not pay attention at work and just watch that game.
Yeah, I'm going to root for Minnesota as I have been traditionally, but it doesn't sound like maybe their odds this year are where I would love them to be.
Outside of Allie Funstrom, they can't score goals. Amanda Levier has had an incredible season.
Right, she does such a good job.
They just can't score.
Loon pads have proven to be a little bit of a regression from the previous fish pads she had, but she's still dominant back there, just doesn't seem to be getting the help that we've seen in the past couple of seasons.
Amanda Levier is third in goals against average, second in save percentage, and only has 4 wins.
That is all the way up on the UFO meter.
So watch the PHF this weekend. It's on ESPN Plus. We all know you have it because you all got the NHL package. And if you don't, what the hell's wrong with you? Why are you listening to a hockey podcast if you're not watching hockey? But there's going to be some really killer women's hockey this weekend. Check it out. hopefully ESPN does a good job of not only marketing it, but producing it. And so it looks good. And it's going to be down in Tampa. It should be a fun time.
We're going to be watching, we might be shit posting. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, keep an eye on our Twitter feed at Handsome Hockey. Probably both of us will be commandeering it at some point.
Depends how much we drink.
Yeah. Oh, well. So yes, both of us will be commandeering it at some point, and we're just going to shit post, and I'm going to just love on the whale. Fins up. Let's go pod.
Let's do it. Yeah, I love how our Twitter handle is sort of like a car that has the wheel like equidistant between the two front seats, and we're just kind of like, yeah.
The only difference is you have your own Twitter and I don't.
Oh, yeah.
And so like I'll post something and then I see like a like pop up and I'm like, ooh, it was Evan.
And then then you'll see a bunch of posts randomly one week, and then you'll be like, oh, Evan got Twitter jailed.
Again.
Speaking of jail, there are going to be some NCAA officials that are going to be in the doghouse pretty soon. We're going to switch over to boy hockey now, but boy, did we have a controversy in the NCAA lead up to the Frozen Four. I don't even know how to best go about explaining what the fuck happened, but Minnesota State thought for the longest time that they had won. They had, they started celebrating. They had their picture taken with their respective conference cup. And then after almost an hour, they had to start playing hockey again as people realized that the goal that they had scored was not actually a real goal. So 40 minutes after the end of the game, the officials and the league determined that the goal that they thought they had scored had gone under the skirt and into the net. Barely. And their entire replay review process failed spectacularly. And this team that thought they had won.
That's like baseball where there's a rain delay and you are like, yeah, fuck it. We'll throw the original starter out there, and he gets shelled for 15 runs because his arm is cold and isn't in the mindset to do this anymore.
Yeah. So they had to come back and play 17 minutes of overtime. And this was to win the Mason Cup for the CCHA and send either team to the Frozen Four. In college hockey, this was a pivotal game. And to have the officials and league just completely mismanage the process of determining what was or was not a goal is a huge black eye for college hockey and the CCHA. And I just feel bad. They just all fucked up at once. There didn't seem to be one particular person who did something wrong. It was just everything failed.
So after playing another 17 minutes of overtime, after sitting in their pads for an hour, maybe even getting fully undressed, showered.
I feel like this was putting on wet pads in a tournament scenario. Nobody likes putting on wet pads.
So Minnesota State did end up winning much later than they thought, and thus propelled themselves to a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. And
that said, they went through this painful process to get the decision right. The goal that they disallowed was clearly not a goal. The goalie splays to try and make a save, knocks the net up off its mooring, and the puck clearly goes to the outside of the pylon and underneath the skirt. This sucks, but they got it right. And I think that's sort of how the story goes, right? It's the right decision often in the moment is more painful to make, and you have to eat more crow to get there, but it pays off in the end. And if they hadn't done this, everybody would be looking at this Minnesota State goal with even more magnification and talking about how Bemidji State was robbed and Minnesota State went to the final Frozen Four on this bullshit goal. And okay, they eventually got it right. Hopefully they learned something in the process about how to get it right in a better fashion in the future.
Pay attention. That's a
That's
good
what my
start.
professors always said to me.
Mine just wondered where I was. Also in hockey, Ovechkin passed Yager for third all time.
If you've
in
been paying
goals.
attention.
And Yager immediately quipped on the social media that Ovechkin better watch his back because he still has not retired and could come back at any time. As we stated last episode, Yager is a wonderful human, and this just proves it further.
I mean, he's probably like one drunken phone call away from an NHL contract. Like, let's be
At any
honest.
point, yeah. And then in the worst publicized outdoor game of all time.
Yeah, it was like Bill Wirtz of $2 bill not playing the Blackhawks in local TV fame advertised this game.
Yeah, they didn't promote it at all, especially after last year when they promoted the hell out of the Tahoe games, only for them to just fall flat on their face. They have Toronto and Buffalo playing outside
In Hamilton, Ontario, right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that was it. They were just like, Hamilton is an SEO nightmare. We can never compete with the musical. We're not even going to try and publicize this.
or they could have combined forces.
They could have said, yeah, not going to miss my shot. Like, just ad nauseum.
Well, Austin Matthews didn't miss his shot. Unfortunately, his shot was a cross check to the neck of Rasmus Dahlin.
He did score, and Rasmus Dahlin was also committing some penalties in that vicinity. But yeah, Austin Matthews cross-checked the living shit out of his head.
Yes, and promptly received a 2-game suspension, which honestly was a little shocking.
Yeah.
That Austin Matthews, the leader in goals in the NHL, was suspended for 2 games.
But also good.
Yes, absolutely.
Like-
refreshing.
After seeing so many bad calls over the last month and change, I mean, we didn't do a refs behaving badly segment, but we probably could have, because Toronto is frustrated with referees, and rightly so.
Yeah.
But cross-checking beautiful baby Rasmus Dahlin's head is not how you express several games worth of referee anger.
Yes. And so he was suspended for 2 games. During those 2 games, how many points did Michael Bunting have? Fucking 0.
$1, Bob.
Fucking 0.
Wow, I would have been the over.
Yeah, and lost. Can you guess 0?
Yeah, no, I don't. I think that's. I think if you guess that, like, the world explodes or something.
Michael Bunting,
And
who
his
is not-
Calder trophy just went up in flames when Austin Matthews got suspended.
Yes, proving that he's only a product of his incredibly talented line mates.
I mean, he's the good Michael Bunting, but that only gets you so far. Eventually, he's got to go see about a girl. So, lineup for Trade-A-Palooza this year. We have main stage, side stages, lower stage.
and people who just showed up and played in the parking lot.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
with like their significant others throwing confetti.
On the main stage, obviously we got Claude Giroux. He went from Philly to Florida for 2 future first round draft picks because Florida had already spent a first rounder on the most inflated contract and exchange of the trade deadline, which has been Chirot. It's amazing that Montreal just inflated this guy's value so hard, like a fucking meme stock. Like in Reddit, they were just on Reddit pumping fucking Ben Chirot all year. And then eventually somebody bit for a first round draft pick for a fundamentally awful defenseman that takes a ton of penalties.
It's Claude Giroux, German Rupstoff, Connor Bunneman, and a 2024. I am sorry if I biffed your names, and a 2024 fifth round pick for Owen Tippett. So a very high prospect from probably Florida's number 1 prospect.
Just the Tippett.
A 2023 third round pick and a 2024 first round pick.
Which is insane. It's insane that Giroux was dealt for not even a first round pick this year, like 2 future first round draft picks. Like you're drafting someone in middle school right now.
It's a good trade for the Panthers.
And it's a good trade for Philly too. They're going to get 2 first round draft picks. I mean, they probably are going to be lower.
It's one. It's 1 first rounder and a third rounder.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
First and a third.
It's a very low value for a player of Claude Giroux's caliber, but he is on an expiring deal. He will have to be re-signed. He's a pure rental. Could Florida re-sign him? Maybe. I don't know. Their cap situation is a little dicey, but so is everybody else in the NHL, so whatever.
Yeah.
People still keep getting signed, so whatever.
Cap acrobatics at this point in the year are just amazing. It's like Catherine Zeta-Jones going through the lasers in Entrapment, watching the GM just being like, ooh, I'm going to bend over in this way and contort this way and bring on these contracts and send these contracts. And like, it's kind of amazing.
Somewhere Sean Connery, rest in peace, is like, you're playing both sides. Other big deals, Hampus Lindholm to Boston, which I think honestly was a very solid deal for Boston. They did give up a lot for him, but they also immediately signed him to an 8-year deal. We can talk about whether or not that 8-year deal is wise for a 28-year-old player, but
it's not the worst. I mean, he's probably
not great.
He's probably got 6 more years of serviceability.
Maybe.
He's got a pretty decent pedigree. He's first round pick. He's
been good on bad teams. He's been okay to good on bad teams.
Right. And that's the thing is on Boston, he doesn't have to do a whole lot. Their defensemen are performing incredibly this year, far above how anybody expected them to play. And I mean, the kind of bugaboo is, okay, Brandon Carlo has a tendency to disappear when it comes to the playoffs, mostly because he gets headshotted by some random dude. But
named Tom Wilson.
Yeah, they didn't need him, but it's still a relatively smart move, I think. And they're going to keep him. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a good trade. A first and 2 seconds, not chump change.
No.
Plus John Moore and Urho Vakanainen. That's a lot. I'm sorry.
I think that was actually a decent try.
Other big picks, big trades, Brandon Hagel and 2 4th-round picks for 2 roster players from Tampa Bay, Taylor Radish and Boris Kachuk. And
one of which is good. Radish is good.
Radish is very solid.
Kachuk is like, he looks like you sneezed and wrote it out.
He's there.
Kachuk.
But 2 first-round picks, both of which are top 10 protected, but that's a massive haul for Brandon Hagel, who is a fine hockey player.
But I think, I mean, he was like a late round pick or a UDFA, and he's shooting at like a 20% rate right now. So good job for Kyle Davidson getting good value for Brandon Hagel.
Mark Giordano and Colin Blackwell, Seattle just kind of reset their entire roster. They were like, you know what we did? We fucked up that expansion draft. So we're going to get rid of all this and build our prospect pool.
Yeah. Seattle is sort of like a general store that got a bunch of stuff that maybe wanted, and then sold whatever they could of it. And then like now they can bring in better stuff. I don't know.
Everybody, like every once in a while, somebody stops by and goes, oh, I was really looking for some stale graham crackers. Perfect. But hey, somebody's going to buy those stale graham crackers, or a 38-year-old former Norris Trophy winner.
But Seattle did a really good job of stockpiling draft picks.
A ton of draft picks. They have 30 over the next 3 years as of now.
And they're going to get more. They're not done here.
Yeah. Oh, they'll
the fire sale shall continue when they can sell more. But if Vegas is any indication, Seattle could be winning by now. And instead, they are kind of starting out again next year where they started out this year. With a bunch of unproven people looking for some chemistry and like trying to find out an identity. They looked like they might have been flirting with something concrete in the middle of the year, and then that kind of evaporated. But yeah, the consequences of their poor expansion draft are coming home to roost right now.
They're definitely in on the number one pick sweepstakes.
Yeah, Shane Wright could be a Kraken.
Yeah,
that
especially with Arizona and Montreal going on heaters. Like,
Right.
like Seattle's just like, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah,
And they went and beat Detroit the other night. So
if Seattle gets Shane Wright, like a lot of bad moves by that GM are going to get excused.
Shane Wright and Matty Beniers is not a bad start to building a franchise.
Not at all. Not at all. Other big interesting picks we saw sent Marc-Andre Fleury from Chicago to Minnesota for a conditional second round pick that becomes a first round pick if Fleury gets
they have to make it
4 wins in the playoffs, and then they have to make it to the conference championship.
Compared to last year, this was kind of like, it wasn't like a big frills sort of trade deadline, but I think for the most part, like teams paid relatively good prices. There were some overpays, some trades where you're like, they got him for that. Wow. But you know, overall, I honestly, I thought it was a fairly solid trade deadline.
Solid to above average. Like it was billed as maybe being something more, and it didn't really become that. Like we saw a couple nice trades, a couple big names change hands, but you know, at the end,
well, Jack Eichel already got traded too, so
right.
like,
At the end, we didn't see any true surprises.
Yeah.
You know, everything that played at Trade-A-Palooza was billed.
every year on the trade deadline, there's some trades that happen and you go, wait, why did that need to happen? Why did you make this person move?
Yeah. This poor guy
why?
needs to rent a new apartment in
their
a different
girlfriend
city.
had an Orange Theory studio that they were going to.
They owned their house.
They had their own fucking coffee house that they loved. They walked to with their pit bull mix
They
every
had
morning.
9 cappuccinos on the 10 cappuccino get one free card.
And they'll never go back to Iowa City, Iowa again. So we're going to call these the Mr. Irrelevant trades. Mine is Antoine Moran to the Sharks for Alexei Melnichuk, who goes to Tampa Bay.
I mean, Tampa Bay's acquiring this player. I'm sure they're good.
Yeah, the future 30 goal scorer, Alexei Melnichuk.
On a line with Brent Seabrook.
Yes.
My favorite Mr. Irrelevant trade would be Ottawa Senators acquire goaltender Michael McNiven. He's next in the sequence of McIver, McGruber, and now McNiven.
Oh, okay. So he's going to have a movie deal soon.
Yeah.
Good for him.
And he's going to do things like take paper clips and gum and turn them into bombs. He was traded from the Calgary Flames, who I didn't know that they had other goalies, for our favorite player, Future Considerations.
Future Considerations is probably the most underrated player in NHL history, and I'm excited that he's getting a fresh start.
Yeah, he won the trade deadline this year. We'll get to that later, but I don't know, a couple other trades that we liked or didn't like. I thought the Penguins acquiring Richard Rakell from Anaheim in exchange for Zach Aston-Reese, Dominic Simone, the rights to some goaltender named Callie Klang, which is a great name for a goaltender.
Yeah.
Like that seems...
Your posts are your best friends.
Right. I was like, what does that imply? Your posts. And a second rounder. That's A, solid haul for Anaheim for Richard Rakell, and B, a good price for someone that already looks good on that second line.
This is going to be our quick shitty recap, and then we'll get into the handsome hockey version of a recap. Honestly, like winners of the trade deadline, Anaheim, Pat Verbeek's first trade deadline as a GM. He did real well.
The original angry little elf.
The little ball of hate, which is still the best nickname in hockey history.
I mean, if him and Connor Garland don't speak on the phone, I'll be sad.
Anaheim traded out Hampus Lindholm, traded out Rickard Rakell, Nick Delorier,
Josh Manson,
and got a haul of draft picks and prospects back. Zach Aston Reese is a very solid hockey player. He's young. He's going to help that team in the future. The rebuild has started in earnest. The rebuild that their previous GM, whose name we shall not name, he's Voldemort effectively, was not willing to do. And Pat Verbeek came in and was like, nah, fuck it, burn it down.
Right. We're going to fire sale and also, add to our young core. I mean, maybe one of the most consequential trades that Anaheim had is one that won't happen, but we'll get to that later. The Rangers also had an awesome trade deadline. Like they got
Frank Vetrano,
Frankie V,
Andrew Kopp,
a good player from Tyler Mott, girl summer.
They're basically reuniting as many Michigan Wolverines on the team. Like they just showed up and Jacob Trouba was like, hey boys, what's up?
Yeah.
In college, Michigan had the CCM line and it was Kyle Connor, Andrew Kopp, and Tyler Mott. So Andrew Kopp went from playing with Kyle Connor
to playing with Andrew
in Winnipeg to being traded at the same time, effectively, to reunite with Tyler Mott in New York. And so, he's just hanging out with his boys, and Jacob Trouba's there. They're just like, hey, it's a party at the Wolverine Palace. That's what we're renaming Madison Square Garden. So I think those are both real savvy pickups. Tyler Mott is a less skilled but better defensive Barclay Goodrow. I have a feeling that he's going to be a really great playoff player.
Yeah, they got deeper. They got a little bit more talent. They're going to have some players depart, and so they have options to re-sign next year.
Andrew
but
Kopp,
they also got everything on really cheaply. They didn't make a splash trade, but they got, it seemed like the second or third players available in a lot of the positions.
Yeah, Andrew Kopp might have been a little bit of an overpay, but that's fine.
He's also a real NHL player,
I'll put it this way:
a legit top liner.
Andrew Kopp costs more than Devon Taves. So, and who would you rather have? Andrew Kopp is an excellent NHL player. He can play first line to fourth line. You can plug him anywhere in your lineup, and he is effective.
Sure,
it's an excellent pickup, but he still costs less than Devon Taves, who is fourth in scoring.
A foundational defenseman is always going to be worth more than a forward that can play anywhere.
One of 3 foundational defensemen on Colorado's lineup. So the Rangers, the Wild are super hamstrung because their cap hit sucks next year when the Parise and Suter deals kick back in.
So they are in real desperation win now mode.
Yeah, they're in dire straits. So the trade for Marc-Andre Fleury is an excellent trade. He's a Vezina winner, 3-time cup winner.
Something like that.
Yeah, one of the best goaltenders of all time. And now he's in your net wearing his Blackhawks gear with a Minnesota jersey on.
Which awkwardly fits.
Yeah, it kind of works.
That little bit of red. It was oh, all right. Wow.
Yeah, it kind of worked. His pads would have absolutely worked with Minnesota's outdoor game jerseys.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's the same color.
Yeah. They traded for Tyson Jost, who was kind of mishandled in Colorado, or maybe not mishandled, but just he's a good player who was behind a ton of really good players, and so maybe he'll get a better chance in Minnesota. Maybe
they sent Marco Sturm for him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. It was a good play for them.
In sort of trade purgatory, I've put a lot of teams that we can kind of debate, and a lot of these are the big swingers, some of which made some hits and misses, some of which sold a lot to be seen later. But first, what do you think of Colorado?
They didn't have to do much.
You're right. This team is already stacked.
Yeah. What did they need? They got a little bit tougher on the back end with Josh Manson.
Mm-hmm.
They brought in Nico Sturm, who is, he's going to be their fourth line center.
Sure.
And effectively like a 1-for-1 trade for Tyson Jost. They didn't do anything of merit or of note, but they didn't have to. Like,
right. They weren't flashy, didn't need to be flashy.
Yeah, why fuck with the chemistry if it's working, right? Like, I think they're okay. They re-signed Pavel Francouz earlier in the season to an extension, so like they didn't have to worry about backup goaltender. Like, what do you need if you're that team? You just need Gabe Landeskog to come back healthy. Like, that's what you need.
But they were linked to so many, legendary players, whether it was Giroux or Patrick Kane or so many talented players did not go there. And it's interesting to see their kind of standing pat as a really good team as almost like, I don't know, maybe they'll regret it when the time comes. They maybe could have used some goaltending help. They maybe could have used, I don't know. The truth be told is if they win the Stanley Cup that they've been threatening to win for the last 3 years or not.
Yeah. Historically speaking, the data shows that these deadline deal trades rarely pan out or make the difference. So maybe that's Joe Sakic's calculation here is, historically this shit doesn't matter. So let's stay pat with what we have. We have the best team in the NHL. Let's just go with it.
The next controversial team would be Florida. They bought huge. They sold off some quite talented young players and a bevy of draft picks. They will not have a first round draft pick of their own until 2025.
But if you win a cup,
it's
totally worth it.
Sure. But I mean, is that a Stanley Cup winning goaltending tandem that you have right now in Bobrovsky and Spencer Knight?
Bobrovsky's been very good this year.
Sure.
And their defense is good.
And their forwards are great.
Their forward depth is unreal.
But then there's that Ben Sherratt trade.
Yeah, it's really bad.
And I mean, they are taking a gamble. Maybe they're thinking Ben Sherratt's going to be the player he was in the playoffs last year, the player he's more or less been since Montreal brought in a new coach. Like, it's a gamble.
Yeah. Jinxies.
Right. The Jay Freshes of the world have him at like a 0% wins added over replacement, which does seem a little bit extreme on the low end, but the stats guys are really low on this dude.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's really interesting to see him go to Florida when they're trying to, do all this things, and they really jeopardized an important pick for him.
Yeah.
So that's what kept them out of the winner's circle in my eyes. If that pick had been for like Hampus or Justin Braun, I think I probably would have put him in the win. But I don't know. I guess we're going to see what Ben Sherratt is in the playoffs. The losers, I don't know, or maybe many. First of which being Evgeny Dadonov.
Yeah, this poor bastard.
He was first last year traded from Ottawa to Vegas.
Win.
What's that?
That's a win. And it was at the time a bunch of people going, wait, why did Vegas make that trade?
And then he was traded to Anaheim. And then it gets murky.
So supposedly he had a no movement clause right. So every year you have to turn in this no trade clause paperwork. And the operating theory was that Evgeny Dadonov had not turned that in, and therefore his no trade clause was moot, and they could trade him to whoever the fuck they wanted.
But it turns out his agent wasn't the one that fucked up, and in fact did turn in his 10-team no trade clause,
which Anaheim is
on time. Yeah, on which the team that he was traded to is on. Which, like, okay, if he doesn't end up getting actually moved to Anaheim, it sucks for him.
Yeah,
because like
real bad.
This Anaheim team is one you want to be on, And Southern California,
Except, well,
I
he
hear,
doesn't.
is nice. Well, I mean, okay, I can see at the beginning of the year saying, I don't want to play on Anaheim. And then by the end, seeing fucking Trevor Zegras do all sorts of crazy shit and Drysdale sitting there as a featured 1D and like, maybe. And like,
yeah, but at the same time, if Evgeny Dadonov wanted to be in Anaheim, he wouldn't be fighting this.
well, the rumor has it is that he doesn't want California's income tax, whereas Vegas, you pay nothing.
Yeah, and he's making like $5 million a year, so I would as well. So this makes the bigger loser though, Vegas,
Yeah.
who is now not cap compliant,
Which is
unless
hilarious.
this trade goes through.
Yeah, because they brought up Alec Martinez from injury while stashing Mark Stone on LTIR, bringing up Jack Eichel. Like, they're in cap trouble now. And, oh yeah, the other angle of the Dadonov thing is it sounds like the originator of the problem, as the originator of most of the problems in the NHL, is Ottawa. They apparently did not send his no trade clause language. Like, I don't know how this happens, if it's by carrier pigeon or whatnot. Like, maybe that carrier pigeon just died.
Let's hope. Fuck pigeons.
But somehow Vegas did not know and didn't check Cat Friendly to find out that their player had a no movement clause. Like, the NHL, man, they also did not weigh in and say, actually, this player has a no movement clause.
Other losers, I mean, Toronto, they got Mark Giordano, which is good. But
it'll help them, but that's also like you needed goaltending help. There was a goaltender. You did not get him.
And also, the goaltender you tried to get got picked up off of waivers by the fucking Coyotes.
Yeah, that was
And
the other thing.
Sorry, bud. Toronto waived Peter Mrazek, thinking they had Pari Sateri, who they gave a contract to, and Arizona was like, nah, fuck that.
Yours is mine's now.
You got Austin Matthews? Fuck you. That's what this is. It's a big middle finger about the Austin Matthews thing. Toronto's just riding out the goalie train for the rest of the year, hoping that when Jack Campbell comes back from injury, he's Jack Campbell of October, November, December, and not Jack Campbell of probably injured January, February, and early March.
Jack Campbell of literally the rest of the season until this point.
Yeah.
Who has been not good.
He's been not good. I think there's a real good chance that he's hurt, he obviously was hurt, but that he was playing hurt for quite some time.
Other losers were on the sort of like stand pat train. So Edmonton didn't really do much of anything.
They are run by Ken Holland, highest paid GM in hockey,
They did their trading in the summer and got themselves one hot Duncan Keith.
and they managed to one hot steaming pile of Duncan Keith. They managed to not get rid of Josh Archibald, which was supposed to be like on the forefront of their business, and it turns out nobody wanted the anti-vax dude.
It's funny how that happens. And also did not buy a goalie when they desperately need a goalie because their goalies are old and broken.
It's going to be a real funny not make the playoffs or first round exit in Edmonton once again.
It's going to be a Justin Trudeau goes in with fucking the Canadian SEAL Team 6 and extradites Connor McDavid from that team at some point because it's a national embarrassment.
And finally, the Islanders re-signed Zach Parise.
Yeah, why?
Why?
I don't understand. And they had pieces to sell in Cal Clutterbuck and Zdeno Chara that somebody would have bought for something.
Maybe.
And you got nothing. And these guys are still in your team and still bad. Like, come on.
Well,
come on, New York Islanders.
I will say this. The Islanders have been much better as of late, and they had so many games in hand that maybe they're like, yeah, we can do this.
Is Lou Lamoriello really talking himself into fucking making the playoffs at this point? I doubt that. He's been playing Kiefer Bellows.
B for Kellos.
On like first line minutes almost. So that was a super surprise to see the Islanders just like sit by and
they just
not
sat it
do
out.
shit.
They're currently 17 points out of the playoffs, but hey, they've got like 3 games in hand. So,
I mean,
sure.
they've got good players. I'll hand them that, but that team is not good. And this year they've been especially not good. So why would you not sell something and help regroup for next year and beyond? Do not understand.
Free Matt Barzal.
Hashtag free Matt Barzal. God, that beautiful boy.
We said we wanted to put a handsome hockey spin on the trade deadline instead of just reciting facts and nuances and things we're regurgitating from Twitter and our own personal takes from, which are based off of no real skill in prognostication whatsoever. We wanted to compare a couple of NHL team deadlines to real life events that could, just kind of hit you at a moment in your life, and the parallel between what this moment is kind of like the trade deadline that this NHL team had.
We are humanists, after all.
We are here to capture just that bold essence of life and somehow change it into hockeyness. So, for example, the Winnipeg Jets. You wake up hungover around 11:30 a.m. only to realize you have a 10-page essay due at 1. You open your computer and it shows that you tried starting this essay the night before and it's mostly unintelligible, but you don't have time to start with something else, so you have to keep it. You mostly crank out the rest of it, vaguely tying it together with a lavish conclusion that is like somehow actually relatively coherent. It doesn't match the rest of your paper whatsoever, but it's a coherent conclusion, and damn it, this is undergrad, so nobody cares. You somehow misspelled Shakespeare as Steakspeare multiple times because you're hungover and you're hungry, and what's on your mind more than like a big greasy piece of meat that will maybe help cure that hangover. And you failed the paper, but overall you're just kind of impressed that you got it done at all. That's the Winnipeg Jets in a nutshell. Pretty hit or miss on their trade deadline. Got a good return for Andrew Kopp, but pulled in some players that you're like, why the hell are they trading for this person?
Is that the lavish conclusion?
Yeah. Well, no, the lavish it's that you failed, but you're pretty impressed you tried.
No, the Andrew Kopp.
Yeah, Andrew Kopp is
Andrew
the
Kopp
lavish.
haul is the lavish conclusion.
Yeah,
because that was a solid trade. But yeah, I like it. This also feels like a little bit of a like personal experience mixed in here.
Maybe several dozen times.
Yeah, I mean, Steakspeare sounds like a very violent place to like go eat.
It's an English chain restaurant that's trying to capture American food models.
Yeah, is it like Medieval Times meets the Globe Theater?
Meets Steak and Shake.
Yeah. So in mine, you are the Chicago Blackhawks. You've recently gotten out of prison and you're on probation. Since you live in the hellhole that is capitalist America, if you do not work under the conditions of your probation, you will go back to prison. So you're overweight, diabetic, but you have a job. You just barely have a job at a foundry getting pucks in deep. And you have a junker car you bought for cash from a guy who may or may not have used it for a murder. Like you might have heard this through a friend, and it is in shit repair. Like it gets you to work like half the time, but like just fucking barely. You've pushed it to gas stations and into work more than a handful of times. While it's in the shop, wasting your hard-earned cash that you're using on basic expenses day in and day out to just stay out of prison, because like
recidivism is a thing.
It is a huge thing. You know, you find out that it's actually kind of a rare bird, that it's a sports model in its day, and it's a rare car with this particular configuration. And so you just happen to stumble upon a car enthusiast, a friend of the mechanic, who's really interested in this car. And he wants to get this specific strange car from you. You're a sucker not to like go for the deal. So you meet him and he offers to buy the car from you at this, great premium, but you're not going to have a car. You're not going to be able to get to work. Like, you're going to have to completely retool your life. You're never going to be able to buy a car with your current budget. You have no choice but to sell this car and to use it for money for other expenses. And you sell the car to him. You decide to get really interested in bicycling, and you start to watch Tour de France highlights. You learn strange European names like Bjarne Riis, Bernard Hinault, Jan Ullrich, Miguel Indurain. Like you start to really get into cycling. You develop a distaste for fixed gear riders. You consider drafting behind cars, and you meet and you sell the car to this enthusiast for a great price. But you notice that they're grinning ear to ear because they're going to take this car and sell it after a flip for a huge profit. You can't really afford to care. You take your proceeds and you go and buy yourself a pretty nice bike. You get like kind of a racing bike, skinny tires, nice profile. It might even be carbon fiber. And you get helmet, lights, some other gear, and you take it out on a nice bike path and it sucks. You hate it. It's awful. It feels absolutely abhorrent. Every muscle in your body is screaming. But you sold your car. And this is how you're getting to work now. You feel like shit. You hate it. But your only choice is to get better at bicycling. Because this is your life now.
Or the Arizona Coyotes. Big things were expected of you. Your mother is a neurosurgeon. Your father's a trial lawyer. But you really hate the concept of wearing suits and capitalism, and you're grossed out by blood. And so you spent most of your time at college studying Mesoamerican culture, and you wrote your master's thesis on Atahualpa and a theoretical Incan empire that thrives without Spanish interference. That thrives without Spanish interference.
Did Portland invade?
Around 35, you start an alt-rock band with a couple of friends. Despite being older than most alt-rock guys, you know what? You give it a shot. And one of your songs is featured on an episode of How I Met Your Father, the hilarious sequel to How I Met Your Mother. And this catapults you to a brief stardom. Instead of just living in that limelight for a little bit, you capitalize on that stardom by recording a fucking banger anthem of an album. That album, like, the themes are your life growing up in the shadow of your parents, but it also ties into your college studies and your life growing up at Tempe, but like also the life of Atahualpa, who you spent so much time studying. The album features both radio-friendly singles that get tons of airplay, but also these deep cuts that audiophiles digest for 3 fucking hours on a podcast, talking about the nuances of your guitar signature and like all that audiophile stuff that like most people listening to music want people to shut the fuck up about, but there's a niche, and out there those people think they're the best. Anyway, your album is fucking loved by those people. And because of this, you tour the world. You and your band of friends, whom is now a band of like 12. It's like you and your 2 buddies who started the band and all of the backing musicians. There's like one fucking person who plays a triangle and nothing else, but they're getting paid like $30K a show. And you headline the Scala Theatre in London. You fly your parents out, who are in their own right very accomplished and, have been distant because you didn't really follow the mold that they thought you would. But in seeing the success, and not only the success, but also like the reception of you just like pouring your heart and soul into this album and your musical career, they've come to understand you more. they've come to really just like realize the type of person that you are and how you may not be like them, but you've found your niche in this world. And in that niche, you have risen to the top. And they sit in the front row of the balcony. They're not front row people, but they'll sit in the front row of a balcony, avoid the crush of the screaming fangirls. And at one point during an epic guitar solo, you look up and your father has his hand on his heart and his other hand grasping your mother's, and your mother is crying. And these are not tears of sorrow, but they're tears of joy, not only over your virtuoso performance, but your vulnerability and realizing that, you know what, you're a late bloomer, but you found your niche, you found your role. And in 5 to 7 years, when this bevy of draft picks comes to fruition, that'll be the Arizona Coyotes. They'll be in Houston then.
But Nick Schmaltz will be
Nick Schmaltz will be a 30-year-old, 35-goal scorer just for the Houston Aeros.
Prodigious.
All right.
Well, I thank you for bringing that back there from my darkness. You know, that was some really, really quality prose.
Diabetes is no joking matter, and we need lower the price of insulin. That's all I'll say. We've got 2 last little bits here.
Yeah, I want to talk some shit.
And I am gonna burn you to the fucking ground. So have at it, bud.
So did you know that you can't have, as a Red Wings fan, every Calder candidate?
Did you know, as a searching for a new team fan, that the person you're about to put up is not a fucking Calder candidate?
Technically, Cole Caulfield is a Calder candidate. Because
he's Calder eligible, but he's not a candidate.
Well, he's pulled himself back into Calder contention.
No,
with
he hasn't.
A huge goal streak. He's now up there in points per.
He has one more point in one more game than Rem Pitlick, who's on his team. You're wrong.
Does Lucas Raymond and baby...
Nobody puts baby in a corner. And that perfect baby boy is Dylan Larkin. Get your fucking Handsome Hockey Podcast metaphors right.
Sorry. Does Moritz Seider see people in his rearview mirror all of a sudden?
No, because he's a German and he just drives fast.
Oof, I love it.
The Autobahn has no speed limits, and neither does Moritz Seider's Calder candidacy. I'm not trying to discredit Cole Caulfield's last 3 weeks. He's been really good, but he's a guy who got sent to the minors for sucking should not win the Calder.
Well, okay, was it him sucking or was the coach and development process sucking?
Both.
I mean, he didn't suck in the playoffs last year, and so what exactly it was the outlier? Are
you saying that Dominic Ducharme did harm?
I don't know. I think he's looking like the player that he has the potential to be, and had the potential everybody sees.
Yeah, for about 3 weeks. Congrats.
Similar to how he had it for
about 3 weeks last year, too.
Right. But this is on a rebuilding team and with fewer pieces than they had previously.
Not a rebuilding Stanley Cup finalist.
Right.
Cole Caulfield's going to be a very good player. I'm not saying he sucks.
But where does he finish in Calder contention? Calder voting?
7th or 8th?
Yeah, but what about voting?
7th or 8th,
looking where voters are and biases and whatnot. You see him 4th.
No, that would mean he's above Michael Bunting and Anton Lundell. Nah, I don't see it happening.
I'll call it now. It's going to be Seider, Zegras, then Raymond, then Caulfield.
That's cute. Anyways, so finally, we're going to end this on probably the funniest thing to happen this week. Brady Tkachuk has a habit of speaking the truth in the penalty box. Well, in general, but in the penalty box as well. He's talked about how he's been bitten.
Brady Tkachuk is the people's hero.
So he and Rasmus Ristolainen, he of the newly paid Rasmus Ristolainens, were in the penalty box at the same time. Obviously not together, because that would be a real weird NHL rule if there was only one penalty box and everybody had to go in it. That's actually how you market a roller hockey league.
It really is.
They're yelling at one another, and the camera focuses on it long enough to pick up the following. You're fucking shit.
Like, there's no unmistaking it. That is proper international communication happening.
It's the fuck is understood in pretty much every language, including the like 6 that Rasmus Ristolainen probably speaks because he grew up in Europe. I'm a Brady Tkachuk fan.
Absolutely.
Both
Without
of them,
a doubt.
actually. I actually really like their dad, despite the fact that he scored a ton of goals against the Wings. Well, he scored a bunch of goals against everybody, but
Yeah, apparently Keith flew up to Calgary, I think, for St. Patty's Day, and just like they got like fucked up and went golfing or something, and it looked like a time.
yeah. God bless the Tkachuks, America's hockey dad. This is a great moment. Hockey needs more of it. They need to stop being such a stodgy old fucker and like let this cool stuff happen more often.
Yeah, what if in the penalty box you just had the real world road rules interview, one-on-one interview where they just like talk smack, but you can also see the other person.
You have a bullhorn.
Yeah. He was hooking me.
Yeah.
And then
Well,
like the other person's like,
hooking, that's what your mother does.
yeah, exactly. See, you get exactly where I'm going. Just give us the pettiest bullshit between two people in the penalty box at one time.
I
Like,
wish
if you call one penalty, like you can't really do it. But like if you get two people,
they should be able to hit a button in the penalty box that lowers the glass between them, and then they can spout off to one another. This is how you fix things, or how you put hockey on MTV,
yeah.
or the rebirth of pro beach hockey. Either or, cocaine and penalty box mischief. That's going to be it for us tonight, folks. Mostly because I'm really fucking tired.
It's been a long day.
Yeah, we wrote this script just before we came on today, so if it sucks, well, it joins a number of episodes of ours that are not that good. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. You can find us all over the internets, handsomehockey.com, Handsome Hockey Podcast on Instagram, at Handsome Hockey on Twitter, or handsomehockeypod@gmail.com if you want to email us. And if you're still on Facebook, which most of us are, but fuck the metaverse, we have a Facebook page. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Get the fuck out of the Ukraine, and also stay handsome, everybody.
Well, I guess I have to get the fuck out of the Ukraine now.
Yeah. Stop playing Risk.
Kamchatka it is. Restez beau, tout le monde.